Hi, I'm Lisa Goich, and I am so honored to be here today at the LA Book Fest interviewing my friend and my partner in podcasting, Mitch Albom. Mitch Albom, welcome to the LA Book Fest interview.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, this is the first time we've been doing a face-to-face-ish interview. We're normally only on audio, so it's kind of fun to see your face.
Had to take a shower and everything. Yeah, brush my hair.
Wow, you look nice. Did you put your makeup on for this?
No, I'm not going that far, but I did wash my hair. So that's a big step in COVID-19 land.
That is a big step in COVID-19 land. And this is the way people are doing book festivals, at least for this year. This is going to be the way to do this. I'm going to give you just the folks out there a little bit of background on who I am and how I'm attached to Mitch here. We have been friends and worked together for many years now, Mitch. I think it's been like 25 years. Is that right? Something?
Probably,
like
yeah.
that?
Maybe even, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think maybe even longer, because I first met Mitch at a Christmas party when Mitch was working at a radio station in Detroit called WLLZ. I believe I was hosting the Christmas party for them, and I sat at Mitch's table. And Mitch at the time had a radio show with, here we go, Ted Nugent. I don't know how many people know that, but it's definitely the odd couple, but was definitely a fun show.
You try to erase that from your record, but
no, you can't.
Ted's a good guy in his own way, and yeah, I remember those days. I was an FM radio station, and I was doing sports on an FM radio station, which was kind of unheard of back then, but yeah, it was a long time ago, Lisa.
Yeah, so that's when I first met you, and I was thinking of that today when I was like, no, I don't think it was just because that's how I met you then. That's how I got onto Mitch's radio show on WJR, and I was one of the first female co-host on the show,
Right.
Until I moved to Los Angeles to pursue comedy. And we see where that got me. I'm right back here again. So I should have just stayed.
Well, it depends on how funny this is, I guess.
I know. But Mitch still has his radio show at WJR that they do every weekday. For how many years now have you been doing that?
24 years. Yeah, that particular
24
one.
years. Wow. Yeah, it's a long time, and it's a very, very great show, and people can tune into that online as well. You can go to WJR.com, and I think they can still access it through your website, correct? MitchAlbom.com?
Sure. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about a few things. I'm going to lead in with our podcast because that's what we do once a week, every Tuesday, and we have so many Tuesday people listening to this today. Our group has grown to about 4,000 people. In the past 6 months since our show has been out, and they come from all over the world. And at the end of this, they have written some questions for you too, as if we have this virtual audience that we would all be sitting in when people can raise their hands at the end of your talks and actually ask you questions. And we have some really great questions from the listeners that are here. So I want to talk a little bit about the podcast. We are also going to touch on Mitch's last book, hard book, Finding Chika, and now his virtual book, which he is doing currently, Human Touch, which you are in week 5 now, correct?
Yeah, week 5. Well, we're doing this on a Thursday. We're recording this, and week 5 comes out on Friday. Yeah, 5 of 8. So we have 3 more chapters to go after that. Yeah.
Okay, well, we can start. Do you want to start with human touch since that's what
Sure.
we're saying? Wait, okay, so you've been working. I mean, I know here we all are locked up in a pandemic, and it seems that the perfect thing for a writer to do is write during this time. Um, is that what gave you this idea? I need to start doing something, or
No, I actually was in a break from writing. I was going to take this year off and not write anything because I had put out 2 books in 2 years, which for me is very fast. And the last one, Finding Chika, which I'm very proud of, and I guess we'll talk about a little here, and I think was the best book I've ever written, but also the hardest book I've ever written. It was very personal. It was about our little girl from Haiti who we adopted and who died of a brain tumor after 2 fantastic years of living with us here. So I was not writing anything. And then COVID-19 came, and our city of Detroit, where I live and where you're from, has been extremely hard hit. The combination of poverty, high African-American population, lack of access to health care, a lot of intergenerational homes has just really, we soared. And it was New York, New Jersey, and Michigan. And nobody could understand what's Michigan doing up there with those 2 states. And we continue to be on some levels there. And I saw I had to do something in my city. I'm very civic minded. I have a number of charities that I operate here in Detroit, have for years.
sure do.
And so I got the idea that maybe I could write something. I'm a writer, what can you do? Maybe I could write something, but instead of charging money for it, like you normally do, publishers normally do for my books, we could just give it away for free and maybe inspire people to make donations to help us in Detroit. And that's what I've done. So I created a new work called Human Touch, which I don't know if it's a book, a novella, whatever, but it's a fictional work. And there's 8 weeks of it. And 5 weeks will now be up tomorrow. I'm finishing the 6th chapter. And it basically is a fictional story about a small town in Michigan during this very present time. And it's being written in present tense. So the small town has 1 street corner and 4 houses on the street corner. And there are 4 families in these 4 houses. One's a doctor, one's a pastor, one is a Chinese American couple with a Haitian housekeeper and young son, and one is a owner of a small business, a cider mill. So I tried to touch on, the types of groups that are really affected by COVID-19, knowing that this would play out the way it did. And it follows them week by week, although a week in the book is kind of 2 or 3 weeks in real life.
Right.
And what happens as they change? They go from being very friendly and having all these meals together, and it's all this very tight-knit neighborhood, to all of a sudden starting to doubt one another, mistrust one another, stay away from one another, and of course, hungering for human touch, which is where I got the title from. And at the core of it is this 8-year-old boy, a Haitian boy, who seems to be immune to any kind of illness whatsoever. And as people start getting sick in the neighborhood, he sneaks around to their homes and allows himself to be hugged and held, so that people still have this human connection and human touch. And then as the story plays itself out, it gets more and more dramatic, and people are going to find out that he's actually kind of at the key of solving the whole pandemic. So it's hopefully a hopeful and inspirational thing. But meanwhile, I've been putting it up, and people have been downloading it around the world, and have been downloading the Audible version of it as well. We've had, I think we just had to get this information together, but I think it's 500,000 views already between the digital and the audio. And more importantly, people have made donations, and this is from all over the world. It's already been translated into 3 languages. I don't know how they're doing it, but God bless them if they can figure it out. It's in Portuguese and Spanish and something else, Hungarian. So we have gotten donations upwards of $300,000. And with that money, we've done a lot of really good things here in Detroit, from helping senior citizens who are locked in, to quarantine centers for homeless individuals, to kids, to first responders. But the biggest thing is we opened a testing center, and we're the first independent testing center. Detroit only had one, and we opened a independent testing center for walk-ups and drive-ins, because there are a lot of people in Detroit don't have cars, and the only testing center in Detroit you had to drive to, you had to drive into and out of. You couldn't get out of your car. So we've already tested hundreds of people, and will continue to do so, and are exploring how to do even more. The more money we can raise from this book, the more of these places we can open. So it isn't exactly the literary venture that I thought I was, going to do, or that I'm normally used to doing. I like to take my time on my books and go really slowly and edit them really carefully. And this is much more like sports writing. You got to get done by Friday for the following Friday and just turn it in, and then on we go. I still don't know how it's going to end, but it's called Human Touch. And if people want to get it, it's at humantouchstory.com. It's very simple, and you can download it for free. You can download the Audible for free. And all we ask is, if you have the means, then make a donation. If you don't, enjoy the diversion. And, it's not bad to have something to read every week.
Well, it's also a really modern way to do a book. You know what I mean? I think that lots of things are switching to that kind of thing anyway these days, Yeah. And serialization.
Kind of the kwibi of books now.
Yeah.
Little small dollops. Yeah.
It is. And it's kind of fun, I think, for people to be able to finish their little section. It's almost like, binging a show on Netflix or something. You finish your one little section and you can't wait for the next one to come out. So it's not even like you can turn your page to the next chapter. You have to wait till you release it. So it lends a little anticipation to it too, I think it's super cool. Yeah. And I know it's been very well received. I've been watching the people talk about it online and everybody's loving it. And so, you're doing a good thing there, Mitch, as always.
Well, it's a cool thing to do. And I have a little 8-year-old boy here who's living with us from Haiti, from my orphanage in Haiti. And he got stuck up here in the kind of shutting down of the borders. We brought him up for some therapy, and we had no idea they were going to close the borders. And so he's been here since February. And he's a delight. He's an absolute joy. He brightens up our household. Otherwise we're locked down. And here he is, this wonderful 8-year-old kid with all this energy. So he's kind of been the inspiration for the 8-year-old in the book. And actually, when we record the audio, he does his own audio. So he sits on my lap and uses this little microphone here. If I can. Yeah, this is all there is to it. And then we sit and record the audio book. And whenever it comes, I do all the other voices. When it comes time for little Moses, as he's known in the book, then little Knock sits on my lap and he records his lines. So I'm worried he's going to be getting an agent soon and going to have to negotiate.
So he's sort of an indirect inspiration for this main character in the book anyway, right? Is that how he...
Yeah, exactly.
This special angel. Well, he sort of, think about it. Too, him coming into your life right now, this, I guess, is a good segue into Finding Chika, because I would think that his presence in your life right now and his presence in your home helps to sort of, dull a little bit of the ache that you felt with Chica, correct?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for those people who don't know, if we talk about Finding Chika, I want to give them a little bit of a background on it, Lisa. So I went to Haiti 10 years ago, right after the earthquake. I'd never been there before. Wound up at an orphanage just weeks after the earthquake. I got in under a special dispensation thing and found that this orphanage that had been kind of neglected for a long time. And the kids there just stole my heart. And I started to come back and back again and again, and brought workers with me from Detroit who helped rebuild the place. And eventually I ended up taking it over a few months in and have been in charge of it ever since. And so I operate an orphanage, and I'm there every month and have never missed a month in January of 2010 until COVID-19. It's the first thing that knocked me off my axis, which has really broken my heart. But I still talk to the kids every day on Skype and other things. And so we now have 52 children there that we raise. They come in usually about 2 or 3 years of age. And they stay all the way until they graduate our school. We have our own school there. And my goal is to get them all college educated. And I have 52 scholarships actually lined up for every single one of my kids. Wow. And there's 2 of them are here right now. In fact, they're staying here. They're right over there because college is out and they're in college. I'm proud to say one of them is a 4.0 pre-med student, and I just got his grade this morning, 4.0 again. So we're very proud of him and very proud of the kids, all of our kids. But so one day, a little girl named Chica Jong was brought to us. Now, Chica was born 3 days before the earthquake, and remarkably survived the earthquake when the building that she was born in, which is just a structure, it's just 4 walls. It was nothing more than that, just 4 cinder block walls. It collapsed during the earthquake. She was on her mother's chest, and it collapsed around them. the roof fell off because it was a detached roof, a piece of tin, and it collapsed around them, and she survived. 3 days into her life, she survived an earthquake. And that night she slept out in the sugarcane fields in a bed of leaves that her mother made for her. And that's how she lived for the next 6 weeks of her life. So I always like to say Chica was born tough, and she would need to be tough. And 2 years later, her mother would die in that same rebuilt cinder block house, trying to give birth to a baby brother. And you say, well, why did she die giving birth to a brother? Well, because there was no doctor present. Why wasn't there a doctor present? Because there's never a doctor present in Haiti when poor women give birth, and they don't get to go to hospitals, and they don't have insurance or medical care. You just sort of take your chance. And something went wrong, and she began to bleed. And in the same bed where the baby was born, Chica's baby brother, her mother died just minutes later. And Chica became an orphan. And she was brought to our orphanage not long after that. And for the first couple of years of her life, she was loud and bossy and funny. And she told all the other kids where they could go, what they could do. And she just amused us. You know, she would just yell her way into whatever she wanted. And she was very funny. And she's kind of like a little Ethel Merman, you know, a big, loud voice, and loved to sing and dance. And then when she was 5 years old, I got a phone call saying that there was something the matter with Chica from my director. I said, what's the matter with Chica? He said, her face is drooping. And I said, what do you mean her face is drooping? And he said, it's drooping, like one side is drooping. And I said, did you take her to the doctor? And he said, yes. And I said, what did the doctor say? And he said, he gave her eye drops. And I said, I don't think eye drops are going to solve whatever this is. We need to get her a neurologist. And eventually we got an MRI, which is very expensive and hard to do in Haiti. There was one MRI machine in the whole country. And the prognosis came back. The statement was, the child has a mass on her brain, and whatever it is, there's nobody in Haiti who can help her. That's what we were told. And so we brought her to America, thinking American medicine would take care of her. And we got her to the University of Michigan, and we figured whatever it is, they'll fix it. She'll go back to Haiti. And she never went back. She basically became our daughter, and we discovered she had something called DIPG, which is a 4-letter word for death. And it basically is a tumor in the pons area that strikes kids between 4 and 9 years old generally, and usually they're dead within 4 months. And we were told Chica would be dead in 4 months. And the doctor said, why don't you just bring her back to Haiti and let her play with her friends? And very quickly, she might have a good month. And then after that, she'll lose her ability to walk and swallow and breathe, and she'll die. And he said, at least she'll be at home. And I looked at my wife, and we knew Chica's story, and we knew Chica. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. This child is a fighter, and you don't know how tough she is. You don't know what she's already survived in her life. And if she's going to fight, we're going to fight. And with that, we basically embarked on what would be not 4 months or 8 months or 12 months or 16 or 20, but 2 years. She lived for 2 years, way, way beyond what anybody expected. And during those 2 years, we traveled around the world trying to find a cure for the incurable, with all kinds of experimental treatments in different cities and countries. And while we weren't successful in finding a cure, along the way, we did find something that was equally precious, and that was a family. And we found a family. My wife and I hadn't had children of our own. We got married very late, and it didn't happen for us age-wise. And so we had sort of settled into being aunts and uncles. And then you operate an orphanage. You got plenty of kids around you. And all of a sudden, here's this 5-year-old sleeping at the base of our bed every night and delighting us with all the joys of being a 5-year-old girl. And we have some videos that I brought along here to help kind of show who she was, Lisa, because I want people to know who she was. And we discovered as the days and weeks passed what Chica liked and what she loved. And for example, we found out that she loved to do math problems as long as she always got them correct.
Oh.
All right, let's try to do that math problem right there. What does it say?
5 plus 1.
And how much is that?
6.
Check it. Check it. What do you say?
I was right.
So Chica was like that. She was very delighted to learn different things. And as the medical treatments and things would go on. But remember, this was a 5-year-old kid, and she was trying to discover, what was going on in America, this new country she'd never been to before. Everything was a miracle to her.
Right.
I mean, hot water coming out of a faucet was a miracle, and flags from flagpoles were miracles. Squirrels on the trees, she would stand there and she would just look at a tree and she'd say, "Squirrel," and it was just fascinated by it. And television, of course, was this major miracle. And the only bigger thing was the remote control, which she never,
Right.
that was every day was with that.
Right.
So she very quickly learned how to be silly and learned how to delight in little simple things. And we have a video here that shows that no matter what it was, she always managed to find a laugh.
Count on me on 1, 2, 3. I'll be there.
Count on me like 1, 2, 3. I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you. Busted. 4, 3, 2.
We're going up high.
Oh, yeah.
Put it up higher.
That's what friends are
How's that?
supposed to do.
How's that? That's good, right? What we're going to do,
We're gonna slide down the hill.
and it's going to be your first sled ride
Yeah.
by yourself. Are you scared?
Yeah.
But you're going to do it, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because you're brave, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And Whee! Yeah. You did it! You did it! How was that? Did you like it?
Can I do it again?
So as we went along with this process, Lisa, we started experimental treatments. We started radiation treatments. Radiation, Chica would have to go in with a helmet. They'd put her into this machine and they would slide her in. And we discovered that there were, there's adult tough and then there's kid tough. And you think that you're being tough as an adult. But, when we had to put her into that radiation machine, it was my wife and I who cried, not Chica. When we had to take her to MRI after MRI, it was Janine and I who cried, not Chica. When she had to get all these different experimental things done to her, it was us who cried or gasped or worried or lost sleep. Chica, she managed to always sort of keep an upbeat attitude.
Did she know what she was going through at that time? Like, did she understand her sickness? Did she understand any of that? Or did she just think she would go to the hospital and...
Yeah, we decided early on that we weren't going to nickname the tumor and tell her, cancer is a thing that does it. She was 5 years old.
Yeah.
And as far as we were concerned, we wanted to let her be 5 years old for as long as she would be 5 years old. And so she knew that, she had some trouble with certain things at the beginning. The radiation actually gives you a sort of a period of time where things are better than they were before. So she just thought, well, I have to be here because there's something the matter with me. I mean, she trusted us. And we just said, we got to go to the doctor. The doctor's going to make you all better, and then we'll go back to Haiti. And that was good enough for her. And meanwhile, I think she reveled in sort of having two parents around. All of our kids kind of yearned for that. And as you see in this video here, as she tries to take over putting us to sleep, these are the things that you learn when you're, a couple in your 50s. And, it used to just be two of us. It was two. Janine and I have been two people and a couple forever. It's been two people at a restaurant or two people in the car. There's never anybody in the back seat. It's two people wherever you go. Reservations for two, airplane for two. You don't have to worry about 3 seats or anything like that. And all of a sudden you become three. You're three at every restaurant. You're three in the car. It's me in the front and driving Miss Daisy in the back, and you're three at a shoe store. You're three at a doctor's office, and you're three people going to bed much earlier than you used to go to bed when you were two.
Right.
And of course, Chica was always the boss. You'll see that in this video here.
Look at Mr. Mitch is sleepy too.
Get up. Let's go to bed.
Should we both go to bed at the same time?
What?
Should me and you go to bed at the same time?
You should go to bed right now.
Why? Because I'm tired.
Because you're really tired. Then you can't stay up that late. You gotta use this to read.
You're going to use that toothpaste? That's a grown-up toothpaste.
I don't care.
You okay with that?
I wrote in the book in Finding Chika. I kind of broke it down to 7 lessons that Chica taught us because she lived to be 7 years old, and these were lessons I thought that were kind of universal to people, and that's kind of how the book is told. The book is told as me talking to Chica, so there's no horror in it. You know, I tried to do that deliberately because I know people are scared to read books if a child dies in it, they don't want to get to the end. So right from the very first page, you know that Chica's already passed away, but you also see that she's come back to me, and she talks to me, and she visits with me, which happens all the time. Right in the desk that I'm sitting at right here is where I wrote the book and where I was writing my other books when Chica would sit on the floor right next to where I am here now and play with her dolls. I would say, Chica, Mr. Mitch is writing now. So remember, no talking. Okay, in 10 seconds we go, can I have a crayon?
I know.
So the book is kind of done like that. And I have these 7 lessons that you learn. And, one of them is about protection and, how important that is. One of them is about time. You start discovering that your idea of time and being a parent's idea of time are 2 totally different things. Your clocks all melt. Everything works on just the kid's time and not your own time. One was a sense of wonder. Chica just had this amazing sense of wonder no matter what she saw. Everything was amazing to her, and you start looking at that with a kid, and every rock, every pebble, every piece of grass, every frog, it's all astounding to her. And when we went to Disneyland, I remember we took her to Disneyland, and I was so excited. I said, okay, she's going to want to go on this ride or that ride. She's never seen anything like this in Haiti. And we walked into Disneyland, when you go down Main Street. Right. And we got to that center part where there's Magic Mountain or whatever they call it, Space Mountain on your right, and Cinderella's Castle right in front of you, and Haunted Mansion on your left. I'm thinking, what's she gonna say? I want to go on that one first. And right at that moment, a little duck came out of the water in a pond and started walking across the way. And she goes, Mr. Mitch, a duck, and she started chasing after this duck. And I'm thinking, there's $1 billion worth of entertainment here. And you're going after the duck, which was great, because that sense of
that's
wonder.
what she wanted. Right. Yeah. Well, she seemed like that, but think about it too. So she came to you when she was about 5, right? She was 5 years old. Right. So between 5 and 7 when she passed away. But think about that. Children that are raised here slowly see all these things and learn all these things when they're 1, when they're 2, when they're 3. She was like literally immersed in this at 5. So everything to her was like Technicolor probably, and for such a Technicolor personality as her own. I mean, you can see when she talks, there's just colors all around her. I mean, she was really something. I mean,
what I really admired about her, in hindsight and even during that time was that all those doctor things, she never, let them depress her. She would just turn it into something funny, whether it was taking her medicine or being in a hospital. You look at this little video and you'll see what I mean.
Where we are.
In New York.
And what are we doing?
In the hospital.
And what are you doing?
Wearing a silly hat. Watch.
Really?
Just watch.
Really? Okay.
Watch.
Okay. 2 pills at a time. No way.
No way.
How did you do it?
Okay.
That's classic. And there were moments like that with Chica every single day. And, you just scramble to capture them all and to write them all down and to cherish them because, the adult in you is saying, well, I don't know how many more days I have like this. And I don't know how long this is going to go on. And of course it did, eventually start to turn no matter what we tried. I mean, Chica tried. She had 3 different brain surgeries. She had 2 different bouts of 6-week-long radiations. She had experimental immunology treatments over in Germany where we lived in Cologne, Germany for stretches of time. She had a port. She had an arm thing. She had a feeding tube. She went through all kinds of medications and experimental things and never once lost her sense of humor. But
Wow.
over time, she lost other things, as the disease began to really work its way through her towards the end, and only really towards the end, she lost her ability to walk. And that was really a crusher. I remember still when that happened sort of for real. She was trying to get some dolls off of a shelf, and she reached up and then she fell. And then she tried to scramble back up again, and she reached up, she fell. And so she got very frustrated. She tried one more time, and she grabbed the doll, and she fell again. And then she just took the doll, and she just started crawling along the ground with the doll. And she crawled into the kitchen, and she set up shop underneath the table. So she brought the world sort of down to her. And I watched this happen silently, crying without saying anything, and realizing, children just accept things. That's how they're tough the way we are. They make the best of a situation. They find the play in the work. They find the fun in the horror. And here she was. Okay, I'm going to be on the ground now. I'll just set up my own little doll studio right here on the ground. But of course, that broke our hearts.
Yeah, but it never it's just something that it never stopped her, I mean, even into her final days, what was her personality like as she was going into, let's say, her last couple weeks?
Well, I mean, the way DIPG works, so robs you first of your ability to walk and do motor skills, and then eventually it starts to affect your swallowing and your breathing, and it can affect your talking. And so she slowly started to slow down, and her words would slow down, and she would get, to a handful of words. But, she would, even when, like, I remember I was coughing one time, and she really couldn't talk much anymore. I was coughing, and Janine said, here, you need a slap on the back, to get whatever it is out of your thing. And she said, Chica, do you want to hit Mr. Mitch? And, I went over, and she could barely lift her arm, and she, just couldn't resist the opportunity to give me a smack. But, Lisa, I learned something. I mentioned all those lessons, and the last one in the book is something to me that is very profound and has stayed with me a long time. And that happened when Chica couldn't walk anymore, but still was able to talk. And I had to carry her from place to place. I was her transportation. I took her to the car. I took her to the bathroom. I took her to the kitchen table, wherever she wanted to go from point A to point B. She was like hailing a cab, Mr. Mitch, get over here. And one time we were coloring, I remember, at the kitchen table, and I was late for the radio program that I do. And I popped up and I said, Chica, I got to go. I got to go to work. And she said, no, Mr. Mitch, stay. I said, Chica, I have to work. She said, Mr. Mitch, I have to play. And I said, yeah, but it's not the same thing. This is my job.
Right.
And she looked at me and she crossed her arms like this. And she said, no, it's not. Your job is carrying me.
Oh.
And I was just floored when she said that, because I realized in an instant, well, of course, she's right. Of course, my job was carrying her. And all of our jobs is to carry our children, and to carry, if we have the opportunity, the poor and the sick and forgotten children of the world, which is what we have in abundance at our orphanage. And, I write in the book that you're defined by what you carry when you think about it. What do you fill up your arms with when you go through life? And really up to that point in my life, before I got involved with the orphanage, I filled my arms with my work, my books, no matter how nice the books may be or inspiring, or that's what my life was. My work, my accomplishments, my acknowledgments, my awards, all the rest. And then all of a sudden you find yourself, your arms are empty. You can't do anything else, but you're carrying a 7-year-old child. And it's a total different burden, but it's the most blessed burden you're ever going to be asked to have to handle. And I, in a heartbeat, would drop all those other things to have her back in my arms again, even for a second. And that is how we are defined. And that is, I realized, how I'm going to be defined for the last act of my life. If I have 3 acts, I'm going into the third one here, or probably already into it. it's going to be defined by children. And those 52 kids are going to be how I am defined. And that's okay.
It's not a bad way to be defined, Mitch, in your life. You're touching so many lives. And like you said, what do you have, 52 scholarships already lined up?
Yep.
Long beyond your life, these children are going to live a better life because of what you've given them, and because of the legacy.
I thank you for saying that.
It's
and
true.
I know you want to move on to the other thing we have to talk about. Let me show you one more video I brought along. I'm sorry, I'm proud, of
No, be proud. I love this.
Yeah. And so one time, early on in Chica's visiting with us, I would put her to sleep and she'd go to bed a little earlier than we did and turn out the lights. And I asked her, do you want me to sing you a lullaby, before you go to sleep so you're not scared? Mm-hmm. And she said, yeah. And so I didn't know any lullabies, so I just made one up, Mm-hmm. I know the melody to, Brahms' lullaby. So I made one up like, lullaby and good night. Go to sleep now, little Chica. Lullaby and good night. Off to beddy bye we go. Something like that. And I would sing it to her every night, but honestly, she'd fall asleep before I finished, singing. And I never even knew if, it was making an impression or not. It was something that we did. And then one time we had to go out of town and we let her stay with some friends of ours. And that night, I got a text message with a video. And the message said, Chica wanted to say something to you. And I opened it up and it was Chica singing that lullaby word for word back to me. And it remains the most precious piece of video that I have ever received in my life. And I have that and some other things to close this out here that everybody can look at.
Bye and good night. Good sleep, my little darling. Hi, Chica.
Hi, Chica. I love you, Chica.
When you gonna come back?
We miss you a lot.
We could make a star come to us like a gift.
The star should come out of the sky and come to us.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good idea to me. Okay, so that's a pretty emotional little video.
Yeah. Wow. What a way to wrap that up. She really was special,
Yeah. I do want to say that all the money from that book goes to the
Here's
orphanage.
The book. Finding Chika.
Yeah, Finding
right
Chika.
Here.
100% of everything that is earned goes to, that's the way that I want her legacy to go on. And that way she's helping her brothers and her sisters, who you saw there in that video. And the book's been out for a little while and it debuted at number 2 on the New York list. And that was nice to see because, I'm rooting for it in a different way than I've rooted for my other books, because it's funding the orphanage. And
right. It's to make renovations and all the operating costs and everything.
Well, and operating costs and medical. I mean, it's quite a bill.
There's a lot
to foot every year for 52 kids. We have 52 kids and 40 staff members. So there's a lot of people there.
40 staff members.
Oh, sure. We have 15 teachers alone. Then we've got 14 nannies. Then we've got medical people. We've got maintenance people, cleaning people. If I counted the specialists like Spanish teachers and music teachers and things, that would be even more than that. So it's an undertaking, and I'm glad that the funds from Finding Chika will go to help the kids for years to come.
You're an angel on earth, Mitch. I'm just so happy.
Far from it, Lisa.
No, you are an angel on earth, and these are people things that people don't even know. And beyond your the orphanage, you run 9 charities, out of Detroit as well, helping the people who are in need in the city of Detroit. You have an amazing popcorn company, by the way, that does ship, because I have gotten the popcorn shipped here and I ship it to people. And all of this can be found on Mitch's website at mitchalbom.com. Links to all of these other things. But seriously, even just by buying the popcorn, all the proceeds for that go to
Detroit,
Detroit, as well as the Detroit water ice, which can't ship, but it would get here a little bit watery. But if you're ever in the city of Detroit, right, if you're in the city of Detroit ever visiting, or if you live there, please support that. It's downtown and it's a really cool place and amazing flavors on all counts. For all of those things. So you've done really good stuff. So we'll end this with a couple of things here. I want to, first of all, give our little podcast a plug, because we haven't really talked about that. But Mitch had the idea, at least he approached me with this idea back in September of last year, to do a podcast based on Tuesdays with Maury, his multi-million, I think 17 million copies it sold so far. The best-selling memoir of all time, Tuesdays with Maury, still taught in schools all over the place. And by the way, I was looking up some grief books the other day on Amazon, and I realized the number one book in grief, Tuesdays with Maury, 23 years later. So that's what this podcast is based on, is Tuesdays with Maury, and the wisdom of Maury. So how did you come about thinking of doing a podcast based on this?
Well, podcast is an audio medium, and I had all the tapes from my conversations with Maury that I really never shared with anybody. And so as we were coming up on the 25th anniversary of the experience, not the book, but the experience, which was 1995. And I realized, hey, wow, it's going to be 25 years since I sat with Maury every Tuesday and listened to his wisdom as he was dying from Lou Gehrig's disease. Maybe it's time to share that sound with the world now that there's a platform that you can kind of do it in. And having done some podcasts before, I thought, well, this could be pretty cool if we just sort of do a Tuesday session where we go back to some of the things that Maury shared with me, and I play the actual tapes and sort of allow other people kind of into the class, because all that stuff holds up. Not only does it hold up, some of it is prescient. I mean, when he talks about fear and society and things like that, and now we see what we're dealing with right now in COVID-19, it's scary. We've had some shows where we focused on COVID-19, but through the wisdom that Maury shared, when we had no idea that we were going to be facing a pandemic. So he just was so delightful and was so wise, and he had so many amazing things to say. And the way that he said it, he talks like an older man, and he got the pace, and he stops for effect. And, I said, this is just too good not to share. And you've been a longtime friend, and we've talked many times about these topics, and I know that they interest you, and I didn't want to just do it by myself. And I thought, well, maybe if Lisa does it with me, this could be something cool. So we did it. And then my friend, Dr. Phil McGraw, was interested in the idea of it when I talked to him about it. And so Stage 29 Productions, which is under part of the whole Dr. Phil enterprise there, is our company that we distribute it through, and they've been wonderful. And so, it's been, I think we've done 6 months of them now. And each week we just sort of tackle a different topic along the lines of, if I had continued on with Maury, I would have continued on with some of these topics. So I've enjoyed it, and people get to hear Maury throughout the course of the show. We play little clips from him, and then we talk about, what people are involved with. So it's great.
That's amazing. What do you think Morrie would say if he knew that right now, this many years later, his voice is living on, and still inspiring people?
Well, I always tell people that, nobody wanted Tuesdays with Morrie as a book. I mean, I only wrote it to pay his medical bills, and I never would have written it otherwise. And I only wrote it to pay his bills and gave him all the money. And when we got the publishing deal, which took months, we couldn't find anybody who was willing to do it. And we finally found one company, and 3 weeks or so before Morrie died, we were able to get a deal where they gave us enough money to cover his bills, which were enormous because he'd been dying for 2 years. And I directed all the money to him, and then just said, that's the end in my mind of Tuesdays with Morrie for me, because I had done one nice thing for this man who had done so many nice things for me up to that point in my life. And I think I'd finally learned a lesson about thinking about somebody else besides yourself, because up to that point I was pretty self-oriented. And it was supposed to be a tiny little book. Nobody expected it to be anything more than that. They printed 20,000 copies total, and I don't think they thought they would ever sell those. So it surprised me when it came out, and it took a slow, sort of gradual build up that people sort of embraced it. But I always remind people, Morrie Schwartz never read a word of Tuesdays with Morrie. Not one amazing word. And yet his voice is teaching people forever all over the country and world. It's taught in Japan and Australia and parts of China and Norway and India. And so I think he would be delighted, because, what he wanted on his tombstone was the words, "A teacher to the last." And I don't think he ever knew that the last wouldn't be the last, that he's still teaching. The last sentence in Tuesdays with Morrie is, "The teaching goes on." And I had no idea when I wrote that anybody would even read that book, let alone 25 years later, we'd be talking about it in a podcast form. So I hope he's happy. I hope he's one of my 5 people I meet in heaven, and
I hope so
gets
too.
To tell me that we were doing an okay job for him down here.
Yeah, it's really incredible. I mean, and it's turned into plays, stage plays. I know they were doing, a friend of mine, her company was doing a stage play of it right before the COVID hit, and they're going to have to resume that later. And they teach with it. He's everywhere. He's, it's crazy.
Everywhere in a good way, I hope. Not
in a good way.
Not the LeBron James everywhere.
No, I mean his wisdom has just reached so many people. Which I want to get to a couple of these questions, because I know we're on a tight time clock here. One of our questions was, speaking of everywhere, I know Mitch is huge in the Philippines. Let me just tell you that. Mitch showed me one day a video of Mitch at a mall in the Philippines. It was like Elvis or the Beatles had landed in this mall. Craziest thing you'd ever seen. How many people were there? 8,000 people or something like that? Thousands of people. And one of our Tuesday people wanted to know, do you plan on heading back to the Philippines once this health crisis has passed?
Yeah, I was going to the Philippines when this happened. I had a trip to the Philippines set for February. And it was only because of COVID and everything that was going on that it got canceled. So I promised everybody, at the time I said I'll be back in the fall. Now, the fall is getting closer, and who knows, but I will be back as soon as they open things up again, because I had the trip all planned. We knew we were going to go, and wanted to talk to people there about Finding Chika and all that. So yes, I'll go back to the Philippines. It'll be my first trip back. I did a thing with we started a charity in the Philippines, because when I had gone, they had just had that terrible tsunami, that had hit there, and a typhoon, kind of situation. And we went up to Tacloban, which is the region where it was most hard hit, and it was just wiped out. And I was told that the thing that people regretted the most was that the schools were wiped out, because they love to learn and they love to read. And so I pledged to build 10 libraries there. and partnered with a bookstore there. And we have built 5 already. And they're like domes. They're like igloo libraries so that they can't be destroyed by hurricanes or winds or tsunamis or anything like that. And I said, when the 10th one is built, I'll be back to dedicate all 10 of them. So I know 5 of them are built already. So I wanted to go see how we were coming along with them. And so I'll be back there to see them soon enough.
I want to go with you because I'm in love with our Tuesday people from the Philippines. I talk to them a lot.
Right.
I'm trying to think. We have a lot of questions here. What I might do is just, if you're okay with this, Mitch, send you these questions at some point. And you can just maybe handwrite answer these, and then we can post them.
Well, we've got a few more minutes.
Are you okay in a couple minutes?
I'm okay.
Okay. Somebody wanted to know, what is your favorite Morrie aphorism? Morrie had so many aphorisms.
Yeah, he did. That's a good question. My favorite is giving is living.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That has really defined a big chunk of my life. I remember when he said it because I had come in. I was so curious because so many people were coming into him and were meeting with him and were asking him things, and they would go in trying to cheer him up, but they'd come out being cheered up by him, and they would be crying about their divorce, their love life, and they said, I don't understand. I went in to try to cheer him up, but after a couple of minutes, he started talking to me, and next thing you know, he's cheering me up. It was like a therapy session. And I said to him, I don't understand. You're the one who's dying. You're the one who can't move. You're the one who needs to be carried from place to place. Why don't you just take what they're offering you? They're offering you sympathy. Take it. And he said, why would I ever take like that, Mitch? Taking like that just makes me feel like I'm dying. Giving makes me feel like I'm living. Mm-hmm. And he said, giving is living. And that's a very profound sentence.
Well, and that sure has influenced your life because, you've
absolutely.
spent so much time 100%. Now giving to so many people. So I'll ask you 2 questions. One is, what inspires you or motivates you?
To write, I presume the question is?
Or I guess anything in life.
Or to just get out of bed.
Where do you find your inspiration? What motivates you to brush your teeth every day, Mitch?
The alternative. Yeah. Well, for writing, I want to create things that last. I'm not interested in creating a story for the story's sake. I want it to resonate somehow. And I try to find sort of lessons or inspirations that I think, okay, well, there's a great story that can be wrapped around like a hot dog bun wrapped around, but the hot dog has to be something inspirational, something that I want to read, or I think somebody would want to read 5 years later, 10 years later. I don't want it to be of the time. I don't want it to just be about this period of time because it's so ethereal. This period of time passes. And I don't like to write dark books about the dark side of people's angst. I know that many of those books are considered high literature and deservedly so. They're beautifully written. But at the end, I find, I read them and I just feel, well, that was so close to the truth. But I have that truth. I already have that truth in my life. If I want to see somebody who's depressed over losing a child, I'm living it, And so I try to write things that take you out of where you are and into some other place. And that's what inspires me to write. If I get an idea that I think can do that, then I do. Then I'm inspired.
Well, I think that's a wonderful place to wrap this interview up too. And I hope other people were inspired. And there's so much. Go to mitchalbom.com, by the way, if you've not been a regular visitor there's a lot there. It showcases all of Mitch's projects, which are many. I always say, I don't think Mitch sleeps. I think he is a cyborg of some sort that he just plugs in every night like a Tesla for a couple hours.
I wish.
He backs himself up to his docking station.
Okay. All right, Lisa. From you, I'll take that because you're my friend.
It's true. You do more than any human I've ever met in my life. And I'm not, I know that makes you uncomfortable to hear that, but it's true for people who don't know you. You give a lot, you do a lot, and you're really an inspiration to me. And I notice so many others, not only to your readers, but to other writers as well. So I hope that everybody who's watching this today got a little bit of that from this.
Well, I
So thank you.
appreciate all your great questions. I appreciate everybody who's watching, and I'm so sorry that we can't be together. I do miss that human touch and that human connection. And, I hope we get to a point where we can come do this book festival the way I remember it, out in that beautiful California weather, walking around, all the colorful booths and tents and everything. Until then, we'll do it this way. And
Right.
Thanks to everybody who's reading Human Touch, by the way, or who's read Finding Chika or Find It. I never take readers for granted. I don't assume that I have an audience anytime. I'm always amazed when I hear that a book sold one copy, if it wasn't to a family member. So I'm very appreciative of everybody who has supported my books and continues to do so. So take care.
Okay. Thank you, guys.